Black History Decoded.
This image on the Hathor temple is said to be Queen Cleopatra VII and her son Caesarion. I will prove that to be a huge lie. I will tell you who those individuals really are. The Temple of Hathor at Dendera is widely considered the best preserved temple in Egypt. Located about 60 kilometers north of Luxor, it is not a masterpiece of Greco-Roman architecture. If you do your research, everything in that temple indicates the people of Kemet built that temple, not the Greeks or the Romans. Again, colonizers, mainly Christians, claiming something that is not theirs. Lovers of so-called Jesus should not be liars, unless the Jews are right about so-called Jesus. Then the lying and barbarism throughout history makes sense. The temple offers a rare, vivid look at the spiritual and scientific world of the people of Kemet, but my main focus is to show and explain to you that Queen Cleopatra VII and her son are not on that wall. It is none other than Queen Tiye and Amenhotep III. In the mainstream historical narrative, Caesarion Ptolemy XV was the last pharaoh of Egypt on paper, but he never truly ruled as a sovereign Kemetic king. Cleopatra and her son are essentially placeholders used by foreign powers to cover up the original story of the 18th dynasty. This image depicts the acceptance of Isis, aka the Queen of Sheba, aka Makeda from Ethiopia, and her son she had with King Solomon, aka Amenhotep III, into Kemetic royalty. The crown Caesarion is supposedly wearing in that relief is the Pschent, also known as the double crown. It is the most powerful political symbol in Kemetic history because it physically combines two distinct crowns into one. The Deshret red crown represents Lower Kemet, the North Delta. Shape, a flat-top crown with a tall back and a curly wire, the Kemet. Meaning, it signifies mastery over the lands where the Nile meets the sea. The Hedget white crown represents Upper Kemet, the South Valley. Shape, the tall, bowling pin-shaped mitre. Meaning, it signifies the ancestral lands closer to the source of the Nile, the lands connected to Ethiopia. The conflict between the crown and the reality. By wearing the Pschent, Caesarion is making a claim to be the absolute sovereign of the entire Nile Valley. However, there is a major glitch in this image. The colonizer claim, historians say the Greeks carved this to show Caesarion as a legitimate pharaoh. But the Greeks were foreign occupiers. For a half-Roman, half-Greek boy to wear the Pschent, a crown that represented a supposed 3,000-year-old African spiritual union, was the ultimate act of claiming something that wasn't theirs. Falsehood. The 18th dynasty truth. This relief is originally Amenhotep III, King Solomon, making the crown appropriate. Amenhotep III's reign was known as the Dazzling Sun Disk era, a time of peak architectural and scientific achievement. The child that you see is Menelik, aka Amenhotep IV, aka Horus, who was the literal blood union of Amenhotep III Kemet and Tiye Ethiopia of Sheba. Amenhotep III was the only person with the ancestral right to wear a crown that unified the North and the Deep South. Now, Cleopatra. Cleopatra's connection to Isis was the absolute cornerstone of her political and religious identity. She didn't just claim a connection, she presented herself as the living incarnation of the goddess on earth, which is fascinating because I am claiming that Queen Tiye was Isis before she married Amenhotep III, aka King Solomon. By the time this temple was built, Isis was almost always depicted wearing the sun disk and cow horns. When they married, note that Queen Tiye still has the sun disk and cow horns. Also, she had the title of Hathor-Tefnut. Queen Tiye was the first queen in history to be worshipped as a living Hathor. Now, let's go along with the ridiculous narrative of Cleopatra and her son Caesarion being on the wall of the Hathor temple. Why are they being greeted by a child and a woman that looks like Isis Hathor? I'll wait. According to Egyptologists, Isis, Hathor, and Horus are way before Cleopatra's time. So what is going on here? My explanation is quite simple. According to my research, Isis and Horus are in the same timeline as Amenhotep III, making this scene more sensible when I explain it fully. Isis and Horus are not pre-dynastic. They are real royal individuals that existed, and they are a huge part of Kemetic and Ethiopian history. Egyptologists are going to tell you that Isis and Horus are made-up people, gods, like Wonder Woman and Superman. No, they existed in real life. They are the Black Madonna and child, Isis and Horus. A very famous story. The Black Madonna and child are a huge part of Catholic, European, and world history, coming from Africa, Isis and Horus. Note that the Black Madonna and child were introduced into Europe and the world around the 11th or 12th century. Now that is significant if you put your thinking caps on. The story goes like this. Isis, the Queen of Sheba, Makeda, take your pick, went to see King Solomon. King Solomon is Amenhotep III. I know Israel claims King Solomon, but he is not from there. King Solomon is said to have had immense international fame, presiding over a golden age for the United Kingdom of Israel. Amenhotep III versus King Solomon highlights exactly why historians struggle with King Solomon and Israel. We have mountains of evidence for Amenhotep III and molehills for King Solomon and Israel. It is indeed extremely difficult to prove Solomon Golden Age in Israel using the same standard of evidence we use for Amenhotep III. Now, Makeda goes to see King Solomon aka Amenhotep III. This happens when they are young adults. This is a very well-known story. They meet. Yada yada yada, they have a bet. Makeda loses and he sleeps with her. So she is going to have a child out of wedlock. If you understand the culture at the time, this was an absolute disgrace. She can't go back to her people and present a bastard child. Her people would not respect her, so she has to find another way, and she does. Isis, Makeda, was very clever. The Queen of Sheba takes the long way home and has her child in secret while traveling. Christians took that story and added it to their story about so-called Jesus. Isis gives her child to someone she trusts and goes back home. So her people still believe she is a virgin. Now, remember the story in the Bible where a woman finds a child outside the palace, the Moses story? Well, that is the Queen of Sheba's story. Remember, Isis, Makeda, and the Queen of Sheba are the same person. Makeda goes for a stroll and discovers a child, but she knows it's her child. She presents the child to her people, and that is the birth of the Isis Horus Black Madonna and child story. Her people believe this was a blessing by God that their beloved virgin queen found a healthy boy. Not only that, but it is her child, so quite possibly the child looks exactly like her, which would be even more profound. This miracle story travels to different places, but the Queen of Sheba is not finished. Isis eventually takes the child and goes back to King Solomon and gets him to marry her and claim their child. This is in the mythology, and it's also on the wall of the Hathor temple. Here is the mythological story. Re is Amenhotep III. That is his godlike persona. Re can get sick and die. It is because he was a real person, royalty. Royalty and other important individuals in Kemetic society were considered gods. No supernatural nonsense. By Isis demanding the name of Re so she and her son can obtain power, well, that is marriage. This scene on the wall of the Hathor temple indicates that. So this inscription was done after the fact. They already were married, and this is Queen Tiye and Amenhotep III showing to their subjects that this is what happened. If you look closely behind Isis, there is the elevation of their status. Isis immediately becomes queen, and it looks like Amenhotep IV had to work for it. But he is heir to the throne. If you look at the exterior back wall, you'll notice that the scene of the queen and her son is mirrored. You see the same family group on the left side and the right side, moving toward the center. In Kemet, telling the story twice was almost never an accident. It usually represented the two lands or the two truths. The duality of Upper and Lower Kemet. Everything in the 18th dynasty had to be balanced. By showing the story twice, the ancestors were declaring that this royal lineage was valid in both the North Lower Egypt and the South Upper Egypt and Nubia. Queen Tiye, the Queen of Sheba, bringing her son back to the king. The double inscription proves that the son is the rightful heir to the entire African empire, from the Mediterranean down to the source of the Nile. Historians rely on the cartouches, the nameplates, but in the ancient world, usurping a temple was common. A later king would often smooth over the name of a previous ruler and carve their own. If the Ptolemies found a temple that was already a masterpiece of Tiye and Amenhotep III, relabeling it as Cleopatra and Caesarion would be the fastest way to make themselves look like they belong. Add to that high African lineage. Everything that colonizers say about history has to be re-examined. Always do your own research. Like, share, subscribe, make a comment, and have a blessed day. Thanks for watching.